Loki is finally released. Has Elbaf's weakness been revealed? Hello everyone, I'm Amy. Detailed information about One Piece. Chapter 1141 is here. The giant country storyline continues to accelerate. Road and Nami use the Svalar, mist ship, to bring the injured giant guards back to the village for treatment. Meanwhile, Ripley and Franky continue their tour of the treasure tree Atom. Franky expresses amazement at how much there is to see within the Atom tree, beyond what he could have imagined. Ripley explains that the giants have been living on the branches of this enormous tree, which is why there's such rich history associated with each part of the World Tree. Suddenly, Franky notices a massive Atom tree branch that has been cut down. Ripley explains that there was once a village named Hajrudin on that branch. One day, lightning struck the village and set it on fire. The special characteristic of these ancient branches is that once they catch fire, the flames never extinguish. To prevent the fire from spreading to other branches, the giants had to cut off the entire branch along with the burning village. Franky acknowledges that as legendary as Atom is, this is something inevitable once a tree ages. Ripley remarks that lightning and fire may be Elbaf's only weaknesses. An interesting observation considering that in previous wall paintings, we've seen the World Tree struck by lightning. The God's Night Squadron has also been associated with lightning and fire whenever they appear. The scene shifts to the western village where Nami has returned to the party. She's chatting with a drunk Usopp, who asks Jorul what type of woman he likes. Jorul responds that he prefers an older woman, which Usopp finds ridiculous. How could anyone be older than Jorul, who is already the oldest person in the world? Nami sits next to Jinbe, smiling as she watches Usopp's drunken antics, and comments that both Usopp and Luffy had dreamed of coming to Elbaf. Meanwhile, Sanji notices Gerd's absence from the party and begins searching for her. We then see Road bringing the injured giant guards to Gerd for treatment. Gerd tries to ask Road what happened, but he attempts to hide the truth from her. In the end, Gerd beats up Road for his deception. The scene switches to Luffy and Zoro in the Underworld, where they find Loki in a near-death state. Luffy tries to unlock the chains, but they're made of sea prism stone, kairoseki, which weakens him upon contact. Zoro and Luffy argue about releasing Loki. Zoro insists they need to determine what kind of person Loki is before freeing him. To test if Loki's injuries are genuine, Zoro kicks his wound, causing Loki to scream in pain. Zoro concludes the injury isn't fake, while Luffy protests that Loki is almost dead. Zoro remarks that if Loki dies, that's as far as his fate takes him. Eventually, Zoro agrees to release the chains, but decides to keep one cuff attached to Loki's ankle. Luffy suggests getting Chopper, but since the Owl Library is too far away, they should find a village doctor instead. Zoro warns that alerting the giants about freeing Loki would likely get them banished. Luffy dismisses this concern and also mentions they need to get some meat for Loki's recovery. When Zoro points to the defeated animals near Loki as a potential food source, Luffy becomes angry, declaring them his friends and insisting he'll hunt for something else in the mountains instead. As Luffy prepares to head to the village, they hear something from the sky. Looking up, Luffy and Zoro see Hajrudin and his crew, along with Sanji, falling down on a Svalar. Hajrudin, having heard everything from Road, had rushed down to stop Luffy and Zoro. In their haste, they didn't take the normal elevator, but rode a Svalar down. Unfortunately, without island clouds at the lower level, the Svalar plummets. In an impressive double-page spread, Luffy uses his gum-gum balloon technique to save everyone. His body inflates enormously to cushion the Svalar's impact. Hajrudin weeps with joy at Luffy's intervention, but the Svalar rebounds with such force that everyone except Gerd and Sanji are sent flying again. Later, Hajrudin and his crew, now battered and bruised, reunite with Luffy. They thank him for his help, acknowledging that a fall from that height would have meant certain death. Hajrudin then pleads with Luffy not to release Loki, describing him as cunning, cruel, evil, and an irredeemable villain. He warns that Loki is the type of person who would casually kill someone he called a friend just the day before, and that he's an enemy to the world. Zoro remarks that it's too late for such warnings, as Loki has already gotten up. Despite still having a cuff on his left ankle, Loki now stands before Luffy, looking extremely angry with his face shrouded in shadow. His size is colossal, making Luffy appear tiny in comparison. The new giant warrior pirates are shocked by this development. The chapter ends with Loki grabbing his weapon with a malevolent smile, while Hajrudin shouts for him to stay away from the Ragnir, Iron Thunder, possibly referring to Loki's weapon or technique. That's all for the detailed information on One Piece Chapter 1141. No break next week. This chapter seems to have several interesting scenes. Looking forward to the full release. I'm Amy. See you next time.